All set. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Welcome to the Personnel Board meeting for October 16th, 2018. First thing on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 2, minutes of our last meeting. Has everybody had a chance to read them?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With one not voting because Joan's an alternate. Thank you. We're waiting for Lori Smith, who's supposed to be here. Okay, we'll pick it up when she arrives. Okay, item number 4. Rich Carmignani was supposed to be here. He wanted to talk to us, but in his absence, I believe the town administrator will speak.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Handing out a letter that Mr. Carmignani, unfortunately, he can't attend this morning. He sends his regrets. Dear Mr. Chairman, I'm most pleased to share the news that Lisa LaMarche has completed her coursework, passed her examination, and successfully earned the title of Certified Municipal Treasurer. Please join me in congratulating her on this great success. Please consider this letter a formal request for an increase for the Assistant Treasurer Collector Lisa LaMarche. Previously, the Personnel Board had requested a salary survey from neighboring towns to validate an adjustment to her hourly rate given the job description change. I've anticipated the need for an updated survey. Enclosed, please find the updated salary survey along with the associated questions. The salary survey would place Lisa in the $27.50 hour range given her credentials and the office responsibilities. I am asking the Personnel Board to adjust her salary from $19.77 an hour to $21.64 an hour. I thank you in advance for your consideration, Richard Carmignani, and I do have a copy of the survey that Mr. Carmignani has referenced.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you can see the third column in the survey is the validation of the number for the Assistant Treasurer Collector. The first column is Assistant Collector, the second column is Assistant Treasurer, and the third column is the Assistant Treasurer Collector, which shows the $27.50 an hour. I do want to note that there was some conversation that because Lisa has passed her certification, she's entitled to a $1,000 stipend, which the treasurer receives, and that's because the state law specifies that. There is no state law that extends that to an assistant treasurer collector, so I just wanted to be clear that there's no obligation to increase the stipend for this position. Anything that we do will be done on a voluntary basis.
Okay, that was certainly one of the questions this board had,
Yes.
is whether she is eligible for a stipend because she passed it.
Only if you decide that that's appropriate, but there's no legal requirement under the law. It only extends for the treasurer's position.
Okay. One of the first questions I have is, since Rich is not here, is there availability to a history of her salary increases that she's received recently?
Yeah, I have it. I don't have photocopies available, but 2017, she received the 2% cost of living and a 2% merit for a total of 4%. There was an adjustment that was done in fiscal year 2018, which resulted in an 11% adjustment plus a 2% merit, or 13%. And then this fiscal year, beginning July 1, Lisa would have received the 2%, which is the identical amount that all other employees have received, but this proposal also provides for an additional 6%. So if you want to look at what the numbers are, it would be a 6% for a total percent of 8%. So that's the breakdown. What we try to do is we try to be consistent in terms of the amount of money that employees receive, because everyone thinks they're worth more money. And once those floodgates open, it's really tough to control it. And you asked me to look into policy for wage rate adjustments or wage increases, which I'll give to you at a later point. But that's kind of the history of the position. Since Lisa's been here, the town certainly has been generous in its compensation for her position.
Would you be kind enough to repeat the last set of numbers? When you say that it's 6%, that is plus what Rich is recommending?
No. So the 2%, so fiscal year 2019 would be 2% on July 1, and the requested increase as part of Mr. Kamiani's proposal would provide an additional 6%.
So that would be a total of 8%.
Correct. She did receive 2% on July 1st, and she is entitled to a merit review on or about January 1st. What we will do is, depending upon the evaluation, we'll then meet and determine whether she's entitled to a merit increase of up to 2%. But there's no opportunity to go above the 2% unless this board agrees and town meeting also agrees.
That's a lot of percentage to have her just being at $19 an hour. Now, she
Yeah.
started very low.
Yeah, she did. She did start low, but we've also had other employees who started at $12 an hour. And I know that some of those other employees have been really patient. They don't necessarily have a department head as in tune as Mr. Kamiani is with wages, and I applaud Rich for what he's done, but there are other people that are also kind of waiting patiently too.
Any other comments?
I think we've been more than generous with this person. And I think before we start giving more raises, we better take a look at all the personnel in this building and all their wages and see what can be done to kind of cushion these merit increases, if that's what you want to call it.
Okay.
I mean, you said, then you mentioned an 8%, but didn't you mention something like 13%
Yes.
also?
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
there would have been a previous wage adjustment, which amounted to 11%. Again, I think the point was that she started very low, and we're trying to bring her position up to what we consider market.
But so have other people started very low.
Yes.
And what are we doing for those people?
What we've done is we've done a little bit of work trying to bring up other people, but you're right. I can't deny the fact that there are other people that need to be addressed also.
Okay. Joan? You have no, if you'd like, even though you're an alternate, you're allowed to comment or speak, or
Yeah, I have.
you
no
just can't vote. Okay. I have some concerns. First of all, congratulations to Lisa for getting her certification. Given the history of the increases that she's received, she's obviously received increases very fairly. The major concern I have is that we're losing consistency on how we treat performance appraisal raises and cost of living increases. We meet each year, each employee does a self-evaluation, their supervisor gives them an evaluation, then a selectman, personnel board, and the administrator sits down and goes through every single employee, and it is decided that they could possibly get a merit increase as well as a cost of living increase. We've done that consistently for years, but we seem to be getting away from it each year, each year. I truly believe that we have to treat all the employees the same and equally. And in some cases, some people have had the benefit of having increases given to them at town meeting. I don't think that's appropriate way to do it, to just go to town meeting and ask the taxpayers to give individuals increases. I think whatever we do should be consistent within a policy that the Personnel Board has in order to provide increases. Greg and I have talked about this, and we are going to work and try to come up, am I correct, Greg, with a policy that helps everybody and not just one particular individual or two particular individuals.
Peter, I agree. You asked me to go out and look and see what other communities have, and I can present some information later on. What I found was kind of interesting is most communities do it similar to the way that we do. They don't really have a policy on it. They take requests as they come, and they depend on the administrator and the department head to determine whether it's appropriate. But I did find some communities that do have policies, and I'll share that with you later in the meeting.
Okay, good. I personally would like to see that information to make sure that we treat people equally and fairly, everybody.
I agree with your comments. The only difference that I see is that definitely we have people who don't have a supervisor who goes to bat as consistently as others. But in this case, it's not just a year do the same job. She has gone and taken the certification. So that's the only difference that I see. But I do see a lot of people who are in the same position as she is that have started low and do need a little bit more adjustment to bring them up to the current.
Peter,
Yes.
now I have a comment. I figured out that if Lisa did get a $1,000 bonus, if the town so voted, that would be less than 0.5%.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, Rich is not here, because I have some questions for him also. I would be willing to ask the board to consider, rather than a 6% salary increase, to consider whether she could get a $1,000 stipend, which is, as Joan just said, 0.5%. So she would get something for receiving her certification, but not a merit increase for that. I would be willing to consider that. Would any comments from the board?
Okay. I think it's important that when we consider giving individuals, and that's because the supervisor has come and requested that. There are many people in this, well, I don't say many, we don't have that many employees, but there are other people in departments that work independently. They don't have a supervisor. So they don't have a supervisor coming to bat for them, as you said. And so they're kind of left at the wayside. And I think if the board makes an effort to look at everybody's and raise everybody at the same time, I think that there would be less squabbling. And I think it would be more fair and equal
Yep.
than this other thing.
I think Rose hits on a good point. Previously, you had asked me to look at a comprehensive wage compensation and classification review, which is going to look at people's job descriptions and what they do and what their appropriate wage range should be. And I think we're at the point where we're not going to do it for this town meeting, but I do think in the spring it makes sense to do that. Because otherwise, we will continually be addressing these on a case-by-case basis, and those who don't have a voice are sometimes bypassed, and they're valuable people in this organization.
And if you remember last year, or the year before, it was a trickling effect. Every month there was somebody here asking for an increase and a change in job description, as well as a change in their job title. So I think it's time to let's sit back a little bit and look at everybody's and come up with a plan that's equitable to everybody.
And I think bringing in an expert similar to what was done in Charlton a couple of years ago, where they brought in a consultant, and the consultant did a top-to-bottom study and said, this is where we think you should be. People didn't lose money. In other words, if you were above what the range was for your position, you didn't lose it. You didn't lose anything. It's just an acknowledgement when that person leaves, the wage rate for that position would be adjusted in a more equitable level. And I think we're at the point where that would certainly be a good idea for Springtown meeting.
We also have been since I've been on the board, or since I was last chair, every single year, we do go over each performance review with town administrator, a member of the Board of Selectmen. So it has been consistently done, but we also talked in years past about having a more consistent policy or education for the people to do their performance appraisal, so that they're not the same. Every year seems to be sometimes standard language that everyone in the same department has the same verbiage in their evaluation, and it makes it difficult to really tell where are the stars and where are the, people, it never says what they need improvement on.
I think the problem is with the evaluations, people don't know how to give them. They haven't been trained. And I mean, when we look at the evaluations, everything is outstanding or exceptional. I mean, people that have been here 6 months are outstanding. Nobody knows the job that well. They perform the job, but that's what they're supposed to do. That's what we hire them for. But I think if the supervisors were trained, they could give a more proper evaluation.
Yep. I totally agree.
We've talked about that over.
I would just like to say, I believe that Lisa should get something for becoming certified.
I agree with that.
Okay. Then would somebody like to make a motion? Or, yes, would somebody like to make a motion that we would recommend that she receive a $1,000 stipend and congratulate her for getting her certification?
Okay, I'll make a motion that Lisa LaMarche receive a stipend of $1,000 because she became certified as an assistant town treasurer.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And congratulations.
Yes.
Excuse me, Greg, would that come under the merit bonus?
No, we have a separate warrant article that's already on the warrant, so what we'll do is we'll fund the stipend through that.
Okay.
Yep. Because what I want to do is I want her to have that money, rather than waiting, I think she should be entitled to that money sooner than later.
Okay, now, since Rich is not here, do you want me to talk to him and tell him how we voted, or do you want to talk to him when you see him tomorrow?
That'd be fine, I'll talk to him.
You'll talk to him?
More importantly, I'll talk to Lisa, who's here today.
Okay,
I'll let her know.
yep, very good. Okay, we'll go back to item number 3. Lori? First of all, Lori, I'd like to say thank you very much for volunteering and stepping up to help us with it's written down here as a wage chart, but it's a wage study. Lori and
Mary Trottia.
and
Mary Trottia from Nichols
Okay.
College.
met, and there is a game plan in place. Did Jim meet also, or was it just?
No, unfortunately, Jim Dunn was supposed to be at that meeting with me and Mary when we met at Nichols. I called him when I was at Nichols already to remind him of the meeting, and he was sick with pneumonia and had forgotten to let me know that he couldn't attend the meeting. So rather than rescheduling the meeting, since Mary was already there and I was already there, I continued with the meeting. But what I do have, and I made copies for everyone.
Thank you.
What I had done is I had asked Mary to type up a recap of everything that happened at that meeting so that I could inform you of what happened, and you can look it over and see if that's accurate or if you need anything changed on it. But basically what it was doing is I was approaching her on your behalf to see if I could be the liaison on possibly having an intern from Nichols come and do a study for you, which from the previous conversation, it sounds like that might be something good. They would do the background information for you. You would have, if you want a couple of minutes to read through this prior to me going on, just let me know and I can give you a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
Sure.
Okay.
I think before going through her proposal, if I could just give you a little background information on how they do the internships at Nichols, that might be helpful. This student would be doing it as an academic requirement because the HR students need to have that as part of their degree. So as part of that, they have to put in 120 hours on the internship. They have a field sponsor, which is someone that will meet with them periodically, so weekly during their internship. It's usually 10 hours a week for 12 weeks. They're also going to meet with their academic advisor, which would be Mary Trottier in this case. So what they would have to do, in order for Nichols to agree to this, it would have to be a paid internship. $11 per hour is minimum wage, so 120 hours at $11 per hour comes out to $1,320 is what it would cost for this. I can tell you from working in the Career and Professional Development Center, that's a good thing for the town as well because the Department of Revenue has a 5-point step on which they judge whether an internship should be paid or unpaid. There's a lot of gray areas, so it's best just to have it paid at minimum wage so that you're covering yourself and you can't be in violation of that. That being said, I know one of the questions you probably have on this, and I had it myself from Mary. She listed me as the field supervisor, and I said I was just being the liaison between the Personnel Board and Nichols, and that you might prefer someone else to be the field supervisor. She said that this doesn't typically meet their requirements for an internship because usually it's under an HR director that's there with the intern while they're working. So it has to be someone that's familiar with supervising people on internships. So they've recommended that if it's okay with you, if I am the field supervisor. And I know I'm not even in your department, so an option might be to have maybe, I don't know, whoever you wanted, if it was one of the board members, to be a field supervisor and me to be the alternate to work together on that. Because someone has to verify the hours that they're in. If they have a question while they're working, they have to physically be there to be able to answer their questions. An internship, too, is a learning experience, so in addition to them just doing the research, they're going to look for a little bit of background on how a municipality works, the difference between the hourly employees, the union employees, so that the student is getting something from this too. So that's the background on that. Certainly it's up to you what you want to do, and if you want to have someone totally different for the field supervisor, I can have Mary go back. The program chair is Libba Moore, who is the one that's going to have to approve any changes in that. Like I said, this is outside of the scope of what a typical internship is for them, but certainly that's an option, and that's up to you what you want to do on that.
Okay, I see it, internship would begin as early as January 28th.
Right, that would be spring semester. They come back to college on Martin Luther King Day, so that would be approximately a week into it. It has to end, I believe she had an end date of May
3rd?
May 3rd. Possibly it would be before that. I mean, She's a junior, so she's still gonna be right up to the end, but you can, it's a guideline that it's 10 hours per week if you want to have it end a week earlier, or whatever your time frame is. I know you want to have something in place for the town meeting, if you do go this route. So you could certainly accelerate it a little bit, you know, maybe cut it down to 10 weeks at 12 hours per week instead of the 10, if you wanted to accelerate it, so that you have time to review their proposal before you get things together for the town meeting.
Okay,
That's your intent.
have you reviewed this with Jim?
I haven't spoken with Jim,
Okay.
other than when I called him for that meeting. So I don't know if he's still gonna be your representative from this board, or what you're gonna do on that end.
Well, I personally think Jim volunteered for it, and unfortunately, he's not here, so I can't speak for him today, but I think he should be the person that represents the
Okay.
Personnel Board,
So
and
forward
you as
that.
the alternate.
Okay,
I'll wait till Greg comes back, because I'd like to get some input from him on whether this is a direction he wants us to go in,
okay,
because he's the Personnel Director, or whether he has any other ideas or not.
right,
The one thing I like about this is it's an independent study. It's not an in-house study done by us. It's done by somebody that doesn't know anybody in the offices, not connected to anybody. So I very much like that, and knowing Nichols College, whatever they present will be totally professional, and certainly looks like it's gonna,
Be well worth the money, considering if you hired a consultant.
it'd be a lot more than $1,300,
Yes.
for sure.
and if I might add, I think the benefit that you get too, you're gonna have an upperclassman, she's a junior, she's one of the best students that they have, they kinda hand-selected her for this if you choose to go that route. But you also have Mary Trottier, who's an experienced HR professional that's gonna be guiding her through this. So it's not just that you have a student doing this, you're getting the input from her, and she's gonna be setting the directions
And
on
you've
where
got,
they should be
and you've
looking.
got a very good background to be involved in this as well.
Yes, I did handle the internships at Nichols, so I am familiar with what they're looking for.
Well, I would definitely like to see you involved with it. But I also think it's great that we have somebody on the board, and Jim
Right.
has already expressed interest in it.
See, the one good thing about having Jim, and you as the alternate, then the two of you can connect and talk, and we can get updates as the
Are you
project.
talking about as the field sponsor or as the liaison between Nichols?
The field
and-
sponsor.
Okay. All right, so if Jim was to be the field sponsor, he would have to come in weekly to meet with her? Because that's one of their concerns, is that.
That's okay with me.
Okay,
We would have to get his commitment for
Okay.
that.
and then I'm here
Absolutely.
40 hours a week, so if she had questions when he's not here as the alternate, I could answer her
Okay,
questions, so
so
she wouldn't
we'll-
have to wait, if that's
We'll
what
have
you're
to,
looking for.
we'll have to talk to Jim
Okay.
first, in kindness to him, because I'm very capable of delegating him to that position.
I would like to say something.
Sure.
Since our budget is only $600 a year, and part of that is already determined where it's gonna go, we would have to go before the FAA for the money.
What did you say the total was?
1,320,
1,000?
yes. That minimum wage.
I'd like to see whether Greg has any money in some account somewhere that they use for this type of thing, this type of study. But yeah, we'd have,
That's a good point.
we obviously
make sure
don't
we
have
get the
the
money to
money
pay
in our
for it.
budget, but there's got to be some kind of money available to be used for this kind of resource.
I think so.
But when Greg comes back, or after the meeting, we'll talk to him again about this.
So I know you just looked at it for the first time, but if you see anything that's not what you're looking for in this overview, this is something that can be negotiated between Jim and Mary as far as what you're looking for them to do. One thing I wasn't quite sure she had gotten right is on the first page, it says the pay rates were last established in 2011 and were based on a statewide survey. If I remember correctly, I think at one meeting, Joan, you mentioned it was from a 2002 Mass Municipal Survey.
Yes.
So I'm not sure where she got that date from, but,
At some point, I'd like to meet with you and
Jim and Mary?
Jim and Mary.
Okay.
And I'd like to see the face and talk, and I'll also
Sure.
make myself available to help any way I possibly can,
Okay, perfect.
because I think it's important that we do it. My one concern is, a little bit, is number one, the board needs to get Greg's sign off on this, because he's the Director of Personnel now. And I've noticed that every time,
Is that official, that he's the director? I don't know. I don't know when this happened.
It was in
I
the
think it'll
minutes
become
from
official at
last-
town meeting.
Oh, okay.
If the bylaw is changed.
It's the bylaw that's changed, and the bylaw has to be voted at town meeting. But I think I want to make sure that we don't have double interest here, because if you notice, Rich sent us a survey, Aura sent us a survey, every department seems to have surveys, and here we're coming up with another survey. So I want to make sure we're all on the same page here, and not duplicating a whole bunch of efforts.
I don't know if I'm stepping out of turn saying this, but I think that would be the benefit of this, is you don't have different departments coming up with their own surveys and
It's correct.
They can take
going
it
to
into
different towns,
consideration.
picking and
Yep.
choosing. You'd have one that's done for everyone.
Yep. Okay.
Just for information, we belong to the MMPA, Mass Municipal Personnel. And if you do the town of Dudley salary survey and send it into them, they will send you a book of all the Massachusetts towns.
Excellent.
And this can be tailored however you want, and I know, Joan, that's self-reporting, right, from the towns as far as what the salaries are. So if you wanted to find out, like just the previous conversation, you were looking at leases, and it had 3 different columns. It had one that was treasurer, one that was collector, and one that was treasurer/collector. Each town in Mass, especially the smaller towns, kind of have a unique situation, so you could have them, if you do go this route with the intern, you could have them just verify to make sure that you're comparing the same thing.
They're all stated in the surveys,
As far as what, so if it was
each
separated like those two?
job, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Well, one of the concerns I have about surveys is, number one, the surveys change every year, because salaries change every year, and every town's finances are completely different from another town. One town might have a potload of money, and another town like Dudley, which is very conservative, doesn't have a whole lot of money. So even with the survey, we have to make sure that we have the resources to follow through and pay the people what we think they should be paid. So it changes every year, but it's very important that we take a look at this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, good job.
So, do you want me to forward that to Jim, or are you forwarding that
Forward it to Jim, please.
Okay,
I will also try to contact Jim. If you would be kind enough to tell Nichols that we would get back to him.
sure.
Unfortunately, I guess Greg had to leave for a few minutes. I certainly wanted him to listen to what you had to say, and then we'll have to get back to you after I
Okay,
talk to him and get his
that's
blessing.
fine. If I may, can I have just a moment of your time, too? I spoke with Peter briefly before this meeting. I had met with Greg maybe a couple of weeks ago. As you know, I work in the water and sewer department, and in going through the office, there's a lot of things that have to be reorganized, and reorganized, I guess is a good word for it, as far as the files going back and even as far as our regulations. So I met with Greg about getting an intern for our office. He did approve it. He wanted me to make mention of it to your board, and I did make copies of the posting. I've posted that at Nichols as well. I haven't posted yours. This is the one that's posted.
Thank you.
He did approve the internship, and also it's going to be a paid internship for our office. It's $11 per hour, which is the minimum wage. We're going to be funding that through our own department, through the retained earnings in our budget that we have right now. But I just wanted you to take a look at that so that you're aware of it, and even as far as the description that's written up there, we would have to come up with a formal description for yours, but what it's doing, it's showing the benefit that the intern would be getting as well as the benefit of the town, because that's what an ideal internship would be, is you're gonna have a benefit to both parties. So the internship that we're posting, the benefit to the student would be learning about a municipality, how they work, how it's different than a public organization. And at the same time, the scope of this is to help us with our regulations, get everything in order, so that we have a clear track record of when it was voted on at a meeting, if it was voted on appropriately, if it was amended, and then you can easily go back to it. Because in order for our office to operate efficiently, I think we need to have that readily available, that you can go back to whenever it was enforced.
Okay. Good luck.
I think that having Nichols College so close is just a great opportunity for us to take advantage of the internships.
Yeah, they have a lot of good students there, and like they have the faculty behind them too, so that's helping. So I'm just beginning. I've got 2 students that are interested. I'm going to be setting up interviews. Would a board member like to be present at that interview? And what is the step after that? Do they have to fill out paperwork? I mean, they're only going to be a temporary worker here because it's an internship. I'm just not sure what has to be done on your end.
Okay, normally when there is a job posting, you post it for 2 weeks internally and then 2 weeks externally. Whatever candidates you have, usually Personnel Board sits down with the department head, in this case it might be you, and do an interview, and then ultimately it's the department that will decide who they would like to choose for that position.
I
Okay.
think this would be a different scope, though, because it's not a job that is open to
No.
everybody. It's
No.
only Nichols, so
No, that's
I
fine.
don't know that
Whatever-
we need to have as,
No, we
to
don't
go
have
through
to
that whole
post it
procedure.
internally.
Okay. Would you like to be
Sure.
here for
Or
the
would somebody else like to?
interviews?
I know Mary Trottier, I can work with her.
Okay. I don't know, and this depends, because I don't know if the 2 students that I talked to, one wasn't doing it as an academic internship, so there wouldn't be a professor that they're working with, they're just doing it for the experience only. The other one needed it for an academic, so they would have, and I think he's a general business, so it wouldn't be Mary, but whoever is in that department, that would be overseeing them on that end. So only if they do it as academic.
And I think,
Okay,
and I think
so,
in that one would be just attending the interviews.
yes. So Rose and Peter, you're both interested? I can let you know when we have that set up. Is that what you'd like?
Whatever you'd like.
Okay.
Let
I'll
me
let you
know.
know. I emailed them this morning, so they should be getting back to me shortly.
I'm sorry?
I emailed the students this morning to email me their availability so that we can set that up.
Okay?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. Hard work. We are moving forward. A little bit. Okay, item number 5, appointments and resignations. We have none. Citizens' comments, none. Old business. Update, item number 1, assistant, anti-harassment policy.
I did meet with Greg yesterday. I've got a copy of the policy on here that I'm looking at. Greg had a plan he had some things in mind that would be good to update on the policy. He has not sent me anything. We just met yesterday, but I'm expecting that when he comes back here, he may have that update for some things he would like to add. It is, the current policy was written or reviewed by town council, so anything that we recommended that be added to the policy still does need to go back in front of council.
Okay, any questions for Mary Beth?
Who was the anti-harassment officer in the town? Is it Greg?
It does say here, actually, right in front of me here, the Board of Selectmen appointed town administrator Greg Valiakonis as the sexual harassment officer for fiscal year 2015. Doesn't appear that it's been updated since then.
Used to be Pam Daniels. Remember?
And Rich,
And Rich. Okay, any questions? All set?
No?
Okay, Mary Beth, then maybe at the next meeting, we'll put this back on the agenda, once we get more information from Greg. And you can give us another update as we go forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Under old business, employee handbook.
Joan and I have met a couple of times, and we had some suggestions, and Joan was kind enough to type it up on email and send it to everybody. And we have some concerns, but since Greg isn't here, maybe we can postpone that till next time.
Joan, comments?
There were a few things that I saw, and I think really most of the board should be here for us to do this.
Okay. Then I'll take a recommendation to table this to a further date till we have a full board, and as well as Greg, and we'll put it on the agenda for next meeting.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to table this item until the next meeting.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Employee database, Carol's not here. She is updating a employee database file which contains all the employees in town of when they were hired, when they got raises, when they had interviews, when they signed the correct policies, and she's working hard on it and has done a very good job, and that should be updated fairly quickly.
Peter, is she doing all the employees or just the non-union?
Non-union. Not non-union that I know of. Yeah,
Because Personnel Board has nothing to say
No.
with the union.
no, we don't, but it's all non-union employees.
Because we don't have too much say with the union.
We don't have any say. That's all under union contract, and that's dealt with the administrator and the Board of Selectmen. And of course, department heads.
One other thing that I wanted to ask Carol about is in our minutes, the last meeting, it did say that the 20%, there's the signatures of when they have this policy, the harassment policy, that everyone needs to sign it and return it, and, oh, right here. The policy was distributed on August 23rd, 2018, to date, which was September 18th. Only about 20% of them have been returned. And Carol was going to follow up with the people who had not returned them, so I was just looking for an update on that as well.
I think she has more returns. She has followed up. There's still some lacking. But I think a bunch more have turned it in, but it's not 100% yet, but it should be. And we'll keep pressing to get that. If not, I'll contact supervisors personally to get after their departments to get it
It's
turned in.
important to get those in.
Did anybody on the board get one?
I think we got them at the last meeting, and
I don't remember
we?
getting
No?
one. Did you?
No, but when I was clerk, we had to give them out to all the boards and committee members, and
or maybe we just saw a
Sign
copy
it.
of it.
Okay.
And that thing should be part of the evaluation. If the supervisors are not returning what they're supposed to, they're not doing their job either.
You're right, Rose.
I don't know, you were such a stickler for law and order. Well, we're
You're-
lax
no,
ourselves. You
You're
know, we
absolutely,
don't get after
you're
these
absolutely
people.
right. Greg, Lori gave her presentation, and maybe you and I can talk about that, because I'd like to know whether you would like us to continue and go
Sure.
forward with this.
Yeah, I apologize, I had a conference call that I
Yep.
had to step out
No,
for.
that's fine.
But I'm back, and
I understand.
I'm available, Peter.
Okay. All right. So what I'm looking for is to have you understand it and to give this board the green light to go ahead and do it. Thank you. Supervisor's handbook. I had mentioned to Carol And Greg had a comment or suggestion that we're not 100% sure that is a supervisor's handbook actually needed? Or should we, it should be all included in the personnel handbook?
Exactly. I'm not crazy about having a supervisor's handbook because it's one more document that needs to be updated, and I think everything in one employee personnel handbook makes sense to me.
Most of what is in there is a duplicate of the employee handbook.
Yeah, I just think I think there are some things that can be supervisory policies, but I'm not sure we necessarily need a handbook.
Okay.
That's just my impression.
Then in that case, I'd like to have somebody make a motion that we do not update the supervisor's handbook because we're updating the personnel handbook.
Will the personnel handbook have a section in it related to anything supervisory that needs to be there?
I think I'd like to take a look at that and maybe edit some things that need to be migrated over and do that.
So just combine them into one.
I think so.
I would be in favor of that.
Then why don't we make a motion stating that?
I will make a motion stating that we will not have a separate supervisor's handbook, but instead they will be integrated into one personnel handbook.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item number 8, new business. 2 3-month reviews. In your package, there is 2 performance appraisals from employees at the library. I have not had a chance to read them. I'll look at them when I have an opportunity, but they have been submitted to us, and they'll go on their files. Item number 9, board member comments.
It says under here, job descriptions, what is that about?
I don't know. Not sure.
Maybe Lorna had recommended something be put on there.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll bring that up at next meeting also.
Or Lorna or Jim.
Or Jim, maybe. Item number 10, other business. Seeing, yes, Greg?
I just wanted to follow up on a comment that I made earlier. The board had asked that I look at policies that this board could consider for salary adjustments.
Yes.
So I did a little bit of research. I take one, pass it down. I posted a request on the listserv that the Mass Municipal Personnel Association has, and found that many communities have an informal process very similar to what we have. But there are 6 of them that responded and have given you copies of their policies that have a more formal pay adjustment policy, and those are attached. I think they're kind of helpful to go through and read through at your leisure and see if this is something that we want to pursue. And that would be done in the form of a policy that you would adopt relative to pay increase requests, which is, pointed out earlier, seem to be more frequent than they have in the past.
Okay. Greg, a question I had, I have to ask, is we just voted to give Lisa a $1,000 stipend.
Yep.
Is that a one-time stipend?
No, that would carry forward.
Okay,
Yep, that would carry forward.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So anyway, I think the stuff that's here, the information that's here, is kind of helpful in terms of determining what type of policy we really need to have going forward. I think it's a good idea. Peter, I know you and I had conversations about it. I at least wanted to start the ball rolling and say, this is what other communities are doing.
Thank you very much. Good information. We'll have a chance to read it and
Maybe put it on your next agenda.
next agenda.
And
Yep.
have a discussion. The only other thing I wanted to update you on is we have town meeting on October 29th. And there are two warrant articles that may be of interest to you. One is defining the town administrator as the personnel director and clarifying the duties and responsibilities of the personnel board. And then the second is adopting a bylaw relative to the town administrator position. Presently, the town administrator position exists only at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen determines any and all duties. This would be more formal in terms of establishing what the position does and what the person is responsible for, similar to what has been done in other communities. And I will not be here forever. I have a pretty good understanding of what the job entails and what the restrictions on my job duties are. However, someone else that will be coming in new, I think it might be helpful for him or her to have a document that they could refer to in terms of what their responsibilities would be. So those are two items of interest to you.
Okay. My comment on the article that concerns the personnel director is I'm very much in favor of having a personnel director. Because in the past, we would just kind of govern ourselves, and we would ask somebody for guidance, but we didn't have anybody that we could actually report to, and the administrator, being the top official, is a perfect position for that, so I support that article.
So as we, as the personnel board, report to the personnel director, is that correct?
Other way around. So the job of the town administrator and personnel director is to provide you with recommendations, and then your recommendations would flow up to the Board of Selectmen. So it's actually, the personnel director would work for you.
Any comments?
Him or her would be your right-hand person and kind of be responsible for what happens. And it also formalizes that any pay adjustments need to flow through this board. So any appointed or elected official who's non-union that's seeking a pay request, and we have pay request on the warrant this year for the treasurer collector and the town clerk, that needs to get your approval. Right now, there's no formal process for that. That's it.
I'm a little confused here. We talked about the pay increases. I thought they were going to be reviewed until we could look at all of them. But now you tell me the request for an increase in the salaries of the town clerk and the assistant town clerk, town treasurer collector are going on the town warrant.
This board presently has no jurisdiction over the salary of elected officials. So this would be relative to the elected town clerk and the elected treasurer. It does not involve assistants whatsoever.
Okay, who does it involve, just the town?
Elected town clerk and elected treasurer.
We don't, the elected officials, they don't come under us.
They don't come under you, you don't have a role.
Elected, not appointed.
Elected.
Elected, or non-union employees. Elected officials are.
But, Peter, my point in bringing it up is, in the future, if that bylaw is adopted, you will have a say in that.
But the assistant town clerk
Yep.
is not, is an appointed position, isn't it?
A hired position.
Yep.
Yes.
But I apologize for providing too much information. Sometimes it's less is more.
No, Greg, that's important information, and we need to know it, and we need to understand it. And what Greg just said is if an article passes, that then the people will have to come through us, elected officials.
Correct.
Is that, and in my opinion, that's an improvement. There are two articles on the warrant that are coming up that we had absolutely no say in. And it's going to go the town voters. And the voters, I do not believe, are going to fully understand it. And I'm going to probably have to get up on town floor and explain parts of it to them.
That's all I have for items to report.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I do, now that you are back, Greg, I gave a summary of our meeting yesterday and the policy for the anti-harassment, and did you have anything that you were that you could give us your thoughts on items that may be added to that policy?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I just haven't had a chance to react. I kind of thought about it yesterday, but I haven't had an opportunity to do any more on it.
Okay,
So maybe ask it to be put back on your next agenda.
yes, that's what we did. I just
Okay.
was wondering if you had something in your stack of papers.
No.
Okay,
Could we go back to the reviews, the 3-month reviews?
Yes?
Like we were talking about the reviews, how they come in. Now, these people have been here 3 months. They're either outstanding or thoroughly competent
Mm-hmm.
in everything.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to make a note of that.
That's why I think training for evaluation is very important.
And have the evaluations been passed out yet, Peter?
Don't they go out in October sometime?
We usually start it in August or September.
I don't believe they have.
I haven't seen them.
I haven't seen any. Okay, I'll touch base with Carol on that also, make sure that happens. Okay, anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Greg, thank you.
You're welcome.